The way that we see this trilemma is there are big problems, there's not much talent to solve them, and there's really scarce capital. Basically, it's a fertile ground for top founders around the world to come to LatAm and build.
The way we see it is we have the problems. So the question is, why are we not addressing these problems?
Ricardo Salinas Pliego is one of the most bullish billionaires out there. He's been public about saying that 70% of his net worth is in Bitcoin. Right now he says sell your house and buy Bitcoin. So the thing is that this person is not shy about telling people that Bitcoin is the best asset to have right now. Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Frontera de Podcast, where we analyze what's happening in the emerging markets all around the world. We realize that Latin America is the most important region for crypto right now, and also there are several other regions that no one's speaking about. We've given a couple of news about Turkey, we've given a couple of news about South Korea, also Vietnam, and we just saw that trend that it's really relevant. We are experts, definitely, in what's happening in Latin America, and also we want to increase our knowledge in other regions, in other emerging markets. So starting today, we're going to start analyzing some news on other regions, and we'd love to know how you feel about it. I think we have great insights, and as always, most of these insights are in our newsletter. So go to the show link. We have there the subscription to our newsletter. And how's everything, Kush? How has been your week?
Good, man. I'm doing really well. I think it's really important for us to talk a little bit about this conversation we had a few days ago, where we were just talking, sort of strategy around Frontera and perhaps what we saw and what we felt. And part of our reflection was that we believe that Latin America is the most important region for crypto. But one of the beautiful things about this crypto industry is that actually we don't exist in a silo, right? And I think borders matter less and less. And perhaps part of the crypto thesis as well is how do we move towards more global economies where we aren't restricted by borders. So why we decided to start opening up the conversation a little bit is to say, well, what is the relevance of what's happening in Korea, in Africa, in Europe, in North America, and how does that tie back to Latin America, right? I think that does two things for us. So one, it allows us to expand our universe of knowledge and create more informed decisions. And two, also think about, well, where's Latin America heading, given that this global context and sort of rapidly evolving global landscape is unfolding before us? So I'm really excited because I think it just will continue to expand and broaden our knowledge set. So this should be an exciting further direction and next step for us as we move towards covering news in the region. How do you think about it, and why do you think this matters for the region and just like the wider crypto ecosystem?
Well, because of basically, I really like one thing that you told me once, that is frontier technologies at frontier markets. So we are deep exploring basically crypto, stablecoins, everything that happens around that. And we do that at frontier markets. And what is a frontier market? A market where these technologies are going to be more impactful, and how we can size that on how these technologies are getting adopted, how, for example, stable coins will increase money velocity, therefore increasing maybe GDP in some specific countries. I think that the example of El Salvador is fascinating to see. For example, I don't know if you saw this, but Nayib Bukele, every time that Bitcoin gets an all-time high, he posts like a screenshot of El Salvador's portfolio. I mean, so seeing how these things happen around Latin America made us realize that the behavior in other frontier markets is really similar because of some fundamental thesis that we have, that in emerging markets, or what we call frontier markets, there's mostly infinite demand for dollars, and the best way to to put a package and a ribbon in the dollar are stable coins, right? So yeah, I think that we had this conversation. Also, I'm using my LatAm AC hat because, after all, like in a bottom line, I still believe this region is perfect for startups and for this technology. So yeah, really excited about this, and also I think that we now can bring super interesting different players to the podcast. Like, I'd love to know what's happening in Turkey with stablecoins and crypto, right? And yeah, we are the best to bring you this knowledge. So this is gonna be we're gonna start slowly inputting some news and also essays around frontier markets.
Yeah, and I think it's, what can we learn from the African context? What can we learn from the Turkish context? And there are some amazing giga brains out there in this ecosystem that oftentimes don't get sufficient exposure or don't get to put their ideas out into the world. So this is super exciting. Looking forward to this transition. But let's get into it and see what we got on the news and a bit of the newsletter for today.
Yeah, perfect. So also one thing that we realized is that we're creating some of the best essays, maybe well, the best essays about frontier markets out there, and we want to dedicate 5 minutes of the roundup to analyze what we wrote this week. So this week we published this essay of the LatAm Trilemma. That basically what we analyze. It comes from our conversation with Niklas, that the main topic of that episode was bringing European capital to Latin America. They are investing. He's a partner at the Blockchain Founders Fund, and they have a thesis in Latin America. And we've been talking for a couple of months now. And one thing that we have identified is that we have this trilemma in Latin America. And the way that we see this trilemma is there are big problems. There's not much talent to solve them, and there's really scarce capital. So what this trilemma says is that basically it's a fertile ground for top founders around the world to come to LATAM and build, and also from VCs around the world to come to LATAM and fund. And we cannot get like we every time talk about Etherfuse because I think that they really envision and encapture this trilemma. We always talk about Etherfuse and how they're crushing it. They have access. They're top talent, ex-Apple engineers, super strong technical team. They have access. They had access to the U.S. capital markets or BC, and so they're really well funded, and they attacked a local problem in Latin America. And this tweet is great from Dave. He says that MXNE hits $1.7 million in daily trading volume. That's not much, but that's 1.69 million more than the closest competitor. So basically, under that metric, they're dominating, right? And that's because under this mental model of the Latam trilemma, I think that they saw a big problem. They are top talent, and they are well funded. So the thing is, Kush, how do we get teams that complete this trilemma? Top talent with access to capital that are addressing an important problem.
Yeah, I mean, this like entire trilemma is why Odisea is born, right? Because the way we see it is we have the problems. So the question is, why are we not addressing these problems? And we published some research about a year and a half ago where we specifically, and you were a part of that research, where we spoke with 100 founders across Latin America because I wanted to understand two angles there, like the talent blockers that they had and also the capital restrictions. And overwhelmingly, 92% of the founders said that access to capital was a really big barrier for them. But as we all know, raising capital is fundamentally the tip of the iceberg. And beneath that, there's all these other problem sets that you have to address and solve, right? So I'm just like super excited about how do we overcome these challenges because again, it's just a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity, right? Is you have this sort of uh, you have infinite problems and being able to tackle those infinite problems, I think is creates infinite upside essentially, right? So I think the opportunity in the region is huge. There's so many actors trying to sort of work around this as well. But I mean, I think you're an example of someone who is observing a problem, is incredibly talented, and it also has network to that capital. So, how do you think about overcoming that trilemma, and how do we scale that so that there are more Abrahams and Bandos and Fronteras and Espacio Criptos in the world?
I think that there are a couple of things. The first one is that we just need to be fearless, and that's not easy in our region, right? Fortunately, I had the opportunity to go to a good school, do consulting to like a good company, then work at Bit. So, but when I see like people around, it's hard to have that trajectory because when I quitted consulting to go and create my first startup, obviously I was the craziest person in the room, right? Everybody was like, dude, just keep doing consulting and you're gonna be fine. And then Then again, when I left Bitso, when I decided to leave Bitso and go like to another startup and then start Bando, then the, I don't know, another crazy person in the room, and being completely real, I think that in hindsight it's easy to say that, but in the moment it's you go through a lot of fear. Um and one of the best ways to like confront fear is having people and having references that have done the same thing. And I think that we're having more and more of those in Latin America. For example, I was looking at other founders when I started Bando, other Latin founders, and I was like, well, if they can do it, I can do it, right? So I think that that's some a thing that will increase because we have more founders every day. The guys at Frutero, ChippyPay, everyone like Juan Di from Kappa. It's I think we're all inspiration for other founders, and I think that's important. That visibility, I consider it important. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think it's huge. We actually, the Forbes 30 under 30 list was just published, and Juan Di was on there. Frida, who previously was at Wavy Note, is on there. Like, there's a number of people from our very small circle that were on the Forbes 30 under 30 list. Um, there's a joke about you are on this list and then you go to jail shortly thereafter.
No,
Because
we don't
Sam
want that
Bankman
one
Fried
day.
was on there. No, I know, yeah, yeah. But no, but like this is huge, right? It's really cool to see like our friends basically winning, and we've got a lot of news about our friends winning as well, right? So
Yeah, let's go
yeah,
Juan de. I sent a message to him like, dude, congrats. And he told me I didn't know I was nominated, so it was a good surprise and super exciting. I think this is critical. I mean,
yeah,
someone that is recently graduate from Tecnológico Monterrey sees that and says, okay, that guy was seated next to me 2 years ago, uh, talking crazy shit about crypto, and now he's here. I think this is a really important part to confront the LatAm trilemma because of the talent part. And I think if you have the talent, then you have more access to capital. When we say that there is a lack of access to capital, we think it like in a systemic way, not in an individual way. So yeah, that's the essay. Go to our newsletter. You're gonna read all the analysis. Again, it's some of the best in the region. And man, I want to go to the next news about this thing that you published, that you announced a grant from the Ethereum Foundation. What's this? Tell us all about it.
yes. So Olisa, as we've spoken in the past, we're a research-driven firm, right? And that comes a lot from my background, essentially being a researcher at Oxford, where I was really excited about how do we uncover sort of new insights at the frontier of like humanity and knowledge. And I think it's fundamentally where most value lies, anyways, right? So we talked a few weeks ago about this report that we published in partnership with Eric Schmidt's foundation through the Latin American Dynamism Project. And then we really started to explore and think about, okay, technological optimism and acceleration of technology is amazing. And at the same time, we recognize that there are sort of certain risks that comply and are a part of this acceleration of technology. The risks or the problem sets that we see specifically with regards to artificial intelligence, which we believe to be is, one of the two most important technologies of the coming decades, is pretty substantial, right? And we don't really have, specifically in Latin America, really clear direction for where AI is heading and our response to a lot of these risks. So let's briefly talk about some of these risks, right? So whether we think about data sovereignty, data attribution, digital identity, misinformation, and just I think those are some of the more pertinent ones when we think about what AI will essentially be bringing to the market. We think that cryptography, distributed systems, and blockchains are a perfect solution to a lot of these risks, right? So when we talk about digital identity and proving one's humanity, it's no coincidence that Sam Altman's other company is World, right? So that's where we're really trying to drill into this research piece and say, okay, what are the AI risks specifically attributable to Latin America? And then what solutions and what role could Ethereum play in addressing these specific risks? So we're really excited about this. Getting the support of the Ethereum Foundation is also just amazing. Obviously, really love working very closely with that team as well. And the other thing that I'm also incredibly excited about is the incredible elite team of researchers that we have working on this research project. So we've got cryptographers, we've got AI experts and governance experts from Oxford University, Harvard, MIT, Sciences Po, La Universidad Católica de Chile, a really, really great group of all Latin American researchers who are going to be contributing to this research, and all come from really strong sort of research and academic and cryptographic and technological backgrounds as well. So it's a really crazy experiment. It's going to be groundbreaking research as well, which is always something I love. And lastly, what I also really enjoy about this research is that part of our proposal is not just to say, here are the problems, here's some solutions, but the third component behind that is, okay, and here's what actually should be built in order for us to address these challenges, right? And that's where the leverage of being a research-driven firm really comes in, because you can find problems in the market that we were just talking about and then propose solutions that people can actually go out and build, and we can essentially incubate those. So yeah, it's super exciting. It's going to be published in academic literature and journals. So I'm curious, like, how often you think about AI risks and what what threat this essentially poses to the region.
Before that, I'd love to know. Could you say again what's gonna be the final result of this? Is gonna be like a paper? What's the end
Yeah. So
state?
the end output is like a very serious, if you want to put it that way, academic piece of literature that we'll be publishing in leading journals. And that's why for us it was really important to get these. Basically, we've got 3 PhDs who are going to be working on this research, who come from leading academic institutions, and so it's going to be published as academic literature as well, which we're really excited about too.
Cool, perfect. I respect so much academic literature because it's super hard. The quotation thing is like, oh, just thinking about it, I'm glad that people does that, because when I went through something similar, it was a nightmare. But the result is super thrilling and invigorating and super valuable. More in these specific research areas that there are not a lot of information. There's not a lot of information. Regarding AI risks, I think that is one of those things that I have. I know enough to know that I don't know enough. So I rather like talk to you or read your research to get more information. I think that the Leopold, I can never pronounce his last name. Situational awareness of AI was one of the best research pieces I read about it. And I think that in our region, one of the main challenges and in emerging markets is that I think that the adoption for of this kind of technologies, specifically AI, the most interesting thing is to get what are going to be the leapfrogs. Because if you identify the leapfrogs, you're able to create a startup based on that. And what I mean by a leapfrog, there's a really, for example, there are villages in Mexico. We have like 99% of the population has electricity, and that's really interesting. And the thing is that the long tail of people that live in like remote villages, they leapfrog from being connected to landlines to having like solar local generation. And that's just because of the evolution of the technology. It's a lot cheaper to have top tier edge technology in those villages than electrifying the thing. That's gonna talk. That's gonna cost several millions of dollars because of the infrastructure. So if you identify those leapfrogs, and when you identify those leapfrogs, it's a huge market. Then it's a great opportunity to start something around it. Um, yeah, so I'm
Totally.
really interested to see that.
Yeah, I think it's about, again, that the alpha lies in like what you perceive to be valuable, and the market doesn't quite see it that way, right? And so part of the outputs that we're going to be producing as well is not just literature for literature's sake, right? I've already been through the whole like academic rigmarole and kind of ivory tower pontification, but rather how do we use research and how do we use a lot of the insights, and literally everything that we do at Elisa is driven by research. We've got an incredible head of research, Claudio. Shout out Claudio. He's such a research nerd, and we absolutely love him because of that. Because he essentially is able to like think really deeply and propose very clear arguments. So why we should do everything that we do at Elisa. So yeah, excited for the research, and if anybody in the audience is interested in discussing AI risks, please reach out. We'd love to chat.
Just to finish this, Could you give us a list of 2 to 5 top AI risks that you see that are like that you're pinpointing right now? I know that it's a huge topic and we can talk about it for hours, but just to have like a trailer.
Yeah, of course. So there's a few different AI risks that we're going to be specifically observing, right? So again, privacy we think is really important in an age where, by the way, my team has become incredibly AI first, right? So we're recording, you know, a lot of our conversations, being able to recall that data. So thinking about, okay, what role does privacy play in a world where, everything that we're doing is essentially being ingested as data, right? Every conversation, every text, every, podcast, right? And so thinking about specifically two angles here. So what role do decentralized identities play in preserving one's identity and privacy in this incredibly digital world? But then also what role zero knowledge proofs play. So how can we provably observe and demonstrate to, say, different models that we have certain data without revealing any of the underlying perhaps sensitive information, right? There's obviously the sort of the bias question. So how do we prove, again, cryptographically and securely that the data that we are receiving and inputting into models is actually fair and accurate? And then the contributions that we make to the data as well. How do we ensure that the contributions that you make, let's say there's a model using your data and somebody's being paid for that, how do we reward people? So crypto rails are incredibly efficient in order to be able to distribute that economic value. Then there's a surveillance piece, right? So in a world where I believe that at some point we'll run economies basically with AI agents and we'll replace a lot of bureaucracy with agents. And so how do we reduce sort of these oversight questions and surveillance questions, specifically
Cool.
on the governance front? So those are a few just like key highlights there.
Excited to see the results. I think. Well, yeah, I'll read it. It's
Yes,
gonna be it's gonna be
absolutely.
like 100 pages or something like that, but I'll read it.
Yeah, it's going to
Uh,
be a very long report. But yeah, let's keep going because we got a lot to cover still.
yeah, or I'll make a podcast with Notebook Eleman.
There we
Yeah,
go.
that's that. But moving along, um, Ricardo Salinas Pliego is one of the most bullish billionaires out there. He's the fifth richest person in Mexico. He has a net worth of around of $5 billion, and he's been public about saying that 70% of his net worth is in Bitcoin. And he says that right now he says like, so sell your house and buy Bitcoin. And why is this important? Because he's a really public person. He's really similar to Donald Trump before being president, who was really active on social media, that was really upfront, that he was either super popular. Whoa, everybody knows him, and a lot of people likes Ricardo Salinas Pliego, and a lot of people are critical of Ricardo Salinas Pliego. So the thing is that this person is not shy about telling people that Bitcoin is the best asset to have right now. And it's really interesting to see his journey. He's a super Bitcoin bull, and he just keeps talking about it. And it's important. This news is important in the context of Frontera because it's a cultural thing. Obviously, he has billions of dollars in Bitcoin, but it's a cultural thing. Everybody knows this guy in Mexico, and he's also the owner of one of the most important banks, that is Banco Azteca. That's a bank that is focused in the base of the pyramid, and it's super weird that you can go to Electra, that is one of the largest retail stores in Mexico. You can buy a microwave in their e-commerce, and when you say pay, you can select to pay with Bitcoin. So this guy is trickling down his ideology all the way to a retail base of the pyramid product. Do you know how familiar are you with Ricardo Salinas?
I know, yeah, I mean, obviously I know him and his work and being one of the wealthiest men on earth, very familiar with how he's managed to achieve that. It reminds me of the Michael Saylor meme where he's like, sell everything
Oh,
you own, sell your house, mortgage your house, like buy Bitcoin. Um, Michael Saylor, by the way, is just like also a really, really smart dude who ended up just coming to the Bitcoin conclusion. I think is so fiercely, staunchly advocating for Bitcoin adoption. And I think it's true, man. I mean, we just had the big, beautiful bill pass in the US that's going to add so much debt to the American economy. And the only way that they're going to be able to resolve that is basically through printing more money, right? And so we're totally seeing, and Ray Dalio speaks about this all the time. He was an ardent critic of the big beautiful bill. because the US is essentially inflating its way out of economic relevance at this point, right? Unless there is some sort of really strong directional change. And I think that provably scarce assets will be what accrues value fundamentally.
Dude, I'm looking at Electra's website, and I was just doing a quick research. They have a whole thing about paying with Bitcoin, and
It's amazing.
there's a step by step guide on how to pay with Bitcoin, and some of the advantages. They have specific promotions and discounts for people paying with Bitcoin. There's this thing called the Buen Fin that is like the Black Friday in Mexico, happens in November. I'm gonna check some discounts just to pay with Bitcoin and like report the whole process. But moving along to the next news, I think this week was announced that this new company is building like stablecoin interoperability, Checker Corp. It's called the name of the company, and we wanted to include this because in their announcement they included Ripio, Rio, Nonco, Kappa, basically everything that we've been analyzing, specifically in one of the best essays that is the Mexican on-chain FX Red Ocean. It's look at this. I really love to see that our research is like right on point on this type of news. And the thing is that they identify that there's fragmented liquidity in stablecoins and in fiat, so they are aggregating all of that liquidity into a simple API, right? So I think that this is just another data point on how there's huge demand for stable coins. And on that same note, and I want to hear more about this of what you think, is we have two news about South Korea. They're planning to lift the restrictions for crypto companies. As we know, basically crypto was banned in South Korea, and people they were there's a lot of crypto in South Korea because also gambling is banned, so they go and trade meme coins. How they like the way that they can access it. So South Korea is planning to lift those restrictions, and also there's this note about how South Korean banks are like in a search after some rumors of them accepting stable coins. And the main point here is infinite demand for stablecoins at frontier markets. What do you think about this?
Yeah, so I think the Jack Chung announcement is really interesting. I do think that there is the need for like there's this really fragmented liquidity of stable coins. There's a couple projects I've seen basically be like an aggregator of stable coins as well, which is specifically for US dollars. But I think, as all of the world's money comes on chain, being able to create the space layer of, okay, here's what kind of the future of finance looks like in this permissionless and open world is incredibly exciting. I think the South Korea announcement as well, it's, branching into now, okay, where is this whole world heading? Is last time we were talking about South Korean government being very afraid and wanting to restrict people using decentralized stable coins, specifically related to the Korean won, because they might flee that currency specifically much more fluidly. But again, I do feel that what these primitives do is just allow for like faster, more efficient way for money to move. And so, whether you do it through the Korean decentralized won or the on-chain Korean won, or you do it through, acquiring Bitcoin or Ether and then switching over to USDC, like these things are going to happen. So I'm not too concerned. Like, how do you feel the Korean news specifically would relate back home and how it might affect Latin America and like where that direction would head?
I think that the main two things. The first one is that banks all around the world will be in a run for stablecoins, right? That's not unique of Korea. That'll happen in Mexico. That'll happen in Brazil. That'll happen everywhere, just because they are better rails. The thing is that when you say that, we think of stablecoins as US dollar stablecoins, but as we've done a lot of research about it, we also need local stablecoins. So there are two ways to do this, like the CBDC approach or like the private market approach. And I think that translating that to our region, there's a lot of opportunity, specifically for two type of startups: having institutional infrastructure for stablecoins for banks around the world, and also the second one is the asset, like having the COP M's from Intel, the MXNEs from Ethernfuse, the MXNBs from Bitso. So we're starting to see this explosion, and it's really interesting to see how they are gonna connect like a Korean bank and a Mexican bank on which rail. At the end, they might not care if it's on Solana, on Ethereum, on Arbitrum, but the thing is that the company that grabs that market is gonna be a super. It's gonna be they're gonna have a lot of power to bend that technology. And at the end, and the third take is that I don't know how you feel about this, but I just feel this is inevitable. It'll happen. So we better grab our knowledge around it, understand it, and execute upon it because it's going to happen. Stablecoins are going to happen. So for people, maybe regulators or people in Latin America listening to this, we just need to understand that this is inevitable.
Totally, totally. It's happening. And I think it's also part of the, sometimes one of the things that's going back to the research piece is sometimes regulators need that research and that education to make informed decisions. So I feel like that's part of the thesis here with Frontera is like, how can we get closer to these regulators so they understand that they're moving efficiently and in the right direction? So it's happening.
And man, final news, great shout out to Rush and all the Portal team. Portal was acquired by the Monad Foundation. Really interesting move from the Monad Foundation, acquiring a wallet infrastructure company. And also, Rush is just great. I met Rush maybe like 4 years ago. We were analyzing back at Bitso like how to work, and we decided to work with Portal. Then we kept chatting, and he's just a really kind person. He was part of the founding team of Visa Crypto, so he knows a lot about payments. Rush is gonna be transitioning to the role of head of stablecoin and payments at the Monad Foundation. Portal will keep operating. This is really exciting news. Another acquisition in the crypto ecosystem, and I'm really happy that happened to someone that is really close to Latin America, that is really close to Frontera. We have an episode with Rash. We're gonna put it in the show notes. Go and listen to that because in that moment and listening to that, you can understand what's the vision for Portal and how Rash and the team is making that happen. So I don't know. I really love this news.
Massive shout out, man. Massive shout out to Raj. Again, really cool to see our friends winning. And just friends of the pod, basically, absolutely crushing it. So shout out to Raj. I'm excited. Like I feel that Monad's in this like soon moment. And it seems like clearly, I feel everybody's trying to make a bet on stable coins. Like you've got stable.xyz that's trying to move towards stable coins. Monad clearly is trying to take this bet. Solana, most stable coins exist on Ethereum today, so it's like everybody's trying to make the stablecoin bet. And this like aggregator of stablecoins, I think, will ultimately win.
Yep. Really excited to see how things evolve. Shout out to Rash and all the Portal team. And as always, Amab, you can follow me at Abraham's CR. You can follow Kush at 0xkush. Remember to subscribe to our newsletter. The next essay is going to be also a banger, one of the best ones. And thank you for listening. Dude, well, before closing, what's heading for you? What's happening for you this week?
I am just honestly like we're shipping a lot, man. Shipping a lot, and been very long days. I was sleeping at my desk the other day, so I feel like full founder mode at the moment. So, how about you? What's going on?
Amazing. I'm heading to New York tomorrow, and I'm gonna be traveling for a couple of weeks, just like moving around. It's exciting. Next frontier, I'm gonna be in Madrid, I think. And yeah, some when you travel, I'm at home, and when I'm at home, you travel. Did I
I,
was that?
yeah, I feel that's fair enough, though, right? Like I feel somebody's got to be locked in, basically.
Yeah, definitely. Well, amazing. Thank you, man. Great episode. I really enjoyed it. Take care and
All
see you
right,
next time.
ciao.
Bye.